My name is Jack Parker, and I fix things for a living. Cars, trucks, motorcycles, anything with an engine and 4 wheels or less. What I couldn't fix was my marriage, though God knows I tried harder than I should have. The call came at 3 a.m. Mom had collapsed in her kitchen, heart attack. Rushed to St. Mary's Hospital. I threw on yesterday's work clothes and drove through empty streets, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. When I got to the ICU, she looked so small in that hospital bed. Tubes running everywhere, machines beeping like some mechanical prayer. I called Lila from the waiting room. My wife of 18 years, mother of my daughter, the woman who used to bring me coffee at the shop when we were dating. Jack? It's 3:30 in the morning, she said, her voice sharp with annoyance. Mom's in the hospital. Heart attack. It's bad, Lila. Really bad. Silence. Then, I'm sorry to hear that. I'll try to visit tomorrow if I can fit it in. Try to fit it in? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Lila, she might not make it through the night. Jack, you're being dramatic. Your mother is tough. She'll pull through. A pause. Listen, I have that girls' night planned for tomorrow. The whole office is going. I can't cancel now. I sat there in that plastic hospital chair, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, watching my mother fight for her life through the window. And my wife was worried about her girls' night. Right, I said. Wouldn't want to disappoint the girls. Don't be sarcastic, Jack. It doesn't suit you. She hung up. That's when something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked. Like a windshield hit by a stone. Still functional, but damaged in a way that would only spread. I spent the next 3 days at the hospital. Mom stabilized, thank God, but she'd need surgery and weeks of recovery. Lila visited once, stayed 20 minutes, spent most of it checking her phone. Our daughter Annie, 16 and full of teenage contempt, showed up long enough to take a selfie with Grandma for her Instagram story. This is so depressing, Annie said, scrolling through her phone. Can we go? My friends are meeting at the mall. Your grandmother almost died, I said. But she didn't, right? So everything's fine. She looked at me with those cold blue eyes she'd inherited from her mother. Maybe if you weren't so pathetic all the time, people wouldn't treat you like a loser. The crack in my windshield spread a little further. On Friday night, while I was sleeping in the hospital chair next to Mom's bed, Lila went to her girls' night. I knew because she posted pictures on Facebook. Her and 5 other real estate agents at some fancy wine bar downtown. All smiles and raised glasses. The caption read, "Sometimes you just need a night with your girls. #blessed, #work hard, #play hard." What I didn't know until later was that her girls' night ended at Brett Morrison's house. Brett, my former best friend. Brett, who used to come over for Sunday football and barbecue. Brett, who was my best man at my wedding. I found out because Lila got careless. She left her purse on the kitchen counter when she came home at 2 a.m, reeking of wine and guilt. Her phone was buzzing with text messages. I shouldn't have looked, but that crack in my windshield was spreading fast. The messages were from Brett. Explicit. Detailed. Filthy. Can't wait to see you again. Tell Jack you're showing houses tomorrow. You felt so good tonight. I can't stop thinking about you. Does he suspect anything? I scrolled up. The messages went back 3 months. 3 months of lies, deception, and humiliation. 3 months while I was working 60-hour weeks at the shop, trying to keep our family afloat, trying to be a good husband and father. There were photos, too. I won't describe them, but they made it clear this wasn't just an emotional affair. I sat in my kitchen at 3 a.m, reading message after message, watching my marriage dissolve in real time. 18 years reduced to sexting and stolen moments in my former best friend's bed. The crack became a spiderweb. Saturday morning, Lila came downstairs in her silk robe, hair perfect, makeup already applied. She poured herself coffee and started scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. "How's your mother?" she asked without looking up. "She's alive. No thanks to you." "Don't be dramatic, Jack. I visited her. For 20 minutes. You spent more time picking out your outfit for last night." She finally looked at me. What's that supposed to mean? I could have confronted her right then. Could have thrown the phone on the table, screamed about Brett, demanded explanations and apologies. The old Jack would have done that. The pathetic Jack who fixed everyone else's problems while his own life fell apart. Instead, I smiled. "Nothing, honey. Just glad you had fun with the girls." She studied my face for a moment, then shrugged. I did. We should do it more often. You should, I said. You really should. That afternoon, while Lila was at the office catching up on paperwork, which I now knew meant she was catching up on Brett, I drove to my auto shop. Parker's Automotive had been my father's business before me, and his father's before him. 3 generations of Parkers, fixing what other people broke. Time to learn some new skills. I pulled Brett's truck records from my files. Brett Morrison, contractor, drove a 2019 Ford F-150, cherry red with custom chrome details, his pride and joy. He brought it in for oil changes religiously, always bragged about how he kept it in perfect condition. Brett was scheduled for an oil change Monday morning. Perfect timing. Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those text messages, about Lila's lies, about Annie's cruel words, about 18 years of trying to be good enough, only to discover I never was. Around midnight, I heard Lila's phone buzz on her nightstand. Another message from Brett, probably. More plans for their next secret meeting. I got up and walked to my workshop in the garage. I had work to do. Monday morning came gray and cold, typical October weather in our small Midwest town. I opened the shop at 7, same as always. Made coffee, turned on the radio, laid out my tools. Just another day at Parker's Automotive. Brett showed up at 8:30, right on schedule. He climbed out of his precious truck with that cocky smile I'd once considered friendly. "Morning, Jack. How's the old girl running?" He patted his truck's hood like it was a prize horse. "She's running great, Brett." Real smooth. "Let's get her up on the lift and take a look." We made small talk while I worked. He told me about his latest construction project, some McMansion out by the lake. Complained about his ex-wife's alimony demands. Asked about Lila and Annie with just a little too much interest. "How's Lila's real estate business going?" he asked, leaning against my workbench. "Oh, you know Lila. Always busy, always meeting with clients." I smiled up at him from under the truck. "She works a lot of nights now, very dedicated." "That's great. Good for her." He shifted uncomfortably. "And Annie? How's school going?" "Annie's doing fine, growing up fast, learning a lot about the world." I tightened the oil drain plug, learning about loyalty, about trust, about what happens when people betray the ones who love them. Brett went quiet for a moment. That's good, I guess." I finished the oil change and lowered the truck. "All set, buddy. She should run real smooth for you." Brett paid cash, same as always. We shook hands, and I watched him drive away in his perfect red truck. He made it about 3 blocks before the transmission started slipping. By the time he reached the highway, his pride and joy was making sounds like a dying elephant. The beauty of sabotage is in the subtlety. A little metal shaving in the transmission fluid, barely visible to the naked eye. It would take a few miles for the damage to become obvious, and by then, it would be too late to prove anything. Brett would need a complete transmission rebuild. Minimum $5,000, probably closer to $8,000 with labor. I was whistling when I closed the shop that night. When I got home, Lila was in the kitchen making dinner. She looked up when I walked in, and for just a second, I saw something in her eyes. Suspicion? Fear? Guilt? "How was work?" she asked. "Fixed a lot of broken things today," I said. "Feels good to make things right." My phone rang. Brett's number. "Jack, something's wrong with my truck. The transmission just went out completely. I'm stranded on Route 9. "Oh no," I said, making sure Lila could hear. "That's terrible, Brett." "These things happen sometimes. Transmissions are tricky." "But you just worked on it this morning." "I changed your oil, buddy. Nothing to do with the transmission." I paused. "You want me to recommend a good tow truck?" After I hung up, Lila was staring at me. "What happened to Brett's truck?" "Transmission failure. Poor guy's probably looking at a huge repair bill." She turned back to the stove, but I saw her hands shaking slightly as she stirred the pasta sauce. "That's unfortunate," she said. "Isn't it?" I agreed. Sometimes the things we trust most let us down when we least expect it. The crack in my windshield had become a full break, but instead of falling apart, I was seeing everything more clearly than ever before. That night, while Lila slept beside me, I lay awake planning my next move. She'd betrayed me, my daughter despised me, and my best friend was screwing my wife. They wanted a villain? Fine. I'd give them the best villain they'd ever seen. Tuesday morning brought the first real satisfaction I'd felt in months. Brett called 3 times before noon, each conversation more desperate than the last. Jack, the mechanic says my transmission is completely destroyed. Metal shavings everywhere. He's never seen anything like it. That's weird, I said, filing my nails while I talked. What are the odds? He thinks it might have been sabotaged. Sabotaged? Who would do something like that? I let concern creep into my voice. Brett, you don't think I had anything to do with this, do you? I mean, I just changed your oil. No, of course not. I'm frustrated, you know? $8,000 for a new transmission? That's rough, buddy. Really rough. After I hung up, I opened my laptop and logged into Facebook. Lila had posted another photo from her girls' night. The whole group raising their wine glasses. All fake smiles and glossy lips. 43 likes and counting. I scrolled through the comments. Lila's friends praising her for taking time for herself and living her best life. Her mother-in-law Evelyn commenting, "You deserve happiness, sweetheart." Evelyn. That bitter old woman had never liked me. Always thought her precious daughter could do better than a grease monkey. She lived in the fancy retirement community across town. Spent her days playing bridge and spreading gossip like a virus. I clicked on Evelyn's profile. Public, of course. She was one of those people who shared every thought that crossed her mind. Inspirational quotes, political rants, photos of her meals, and complaints. Lots of complaints about her health, her neighbors, her ungrateful family. Interesting. Very interesting. That afternoon, I drove to St. Mary's to check on Mom. She was sitting up in bed, color back in her cheeks, arguing with a nurse about the hospital food. A good sign. "Jackie!" She smiled when she saw me. "How's my boy?" "I'm fine, Mom. How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck, but I'll live." She patted the chair beside her bed. "Sit down. Tell me what's really going on." My mother had always been able to read me like a repair manual. No point in lying. "Lila's having an affair," I said. Mom's face didn't change expression. "I figured as much. With who?" "Brett Morrison. That son of a bitch." Mom had never cursed much, so when she did, it carried weight. "How long?" 3 months, maybe longer." "What are you going to do?" I looked out the hospital window at the parking lot below. Normal people, living normal lives, dealing with normal problems. "I'm going to destroy them both." "Good," Mom said. "About time you grew a backbone." That evening, I sat in my workshop with a beer and Lila's laptop. She'd left it open on the kitchen table, password saved, trusting as a lamb. Or maybe she just didn't think I was smart enough to find anything incriminating. Her email was a goldmine. Messages to Brett, of course, but also conversations with her real estate colleagues. Complaints about me, about our marriage, about how, quote, unfulfilled she felt. Plans for the future that didn't include me. But the real treasure was her correspondence with a divorce attorney, Patricia Hendricks, Esquire. They'd been discussing strategy for weeks. How to maximize Lila's settlement, how to get custody of Annie, how to claim the house and half the business. "My husband is emotionally abusive," she'd written. "He isolates me from my friends and family. I'm afraid of what he might do if he finds out about the divorce." Emotionally abusive. 18 years of working my ass off to provide for my family, and I was emotionally abusive. The best part was the timeline. Lila planned to file for divorce right after Thanksgiving. She wanted to get through the holidays first, probably to avoid looking like the villain in front of Annie's friends' parents. How thoughtful. I forwarded the most damaging emails to my personal account, then cleared the browser history. Lila would never know I'd been there. Wednesday brought an unexpected gift. Annie came home from school in tears, threw her backpack on the floor, and stomped upstairs to her room. Lila was at the office, so it was just me and my sobbing daughter. I knocked on her door. "Annie? What's wrong?" "Go away." "Come on, kiddo. Talk to me." "You wouldn't understand." I tried the handle. Unlocked. Annie was face down on her bed, shoulders shaking. Her phone was on the nightstand, screen cracked. "What happened to your phone?" Madison threw it against the locker room wall. Madison Chen, Annie's former best friend. They'd been inseparable since middle school. Why would she do that? Annie sat up, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "Because she's a bitch." "Language." Because she found out I've been talking to Tyler behind her back. Tyler Brennan, Madison's boyfriend, star of the basketball team, every teenage girl's crush. Annie, it's not what you think. We were just texting. But Madison saw the messages and freaked out. She told everyone I'm a backstabbing slut. The irony wasn't lost on me. My daughter, following in her mother's footsteps. Maybe you should apologize to Madison. For what? I didn't do anything wrong. You betrayed your best friend's trust. Annie glared at me with those cold blue eyes. Like you would know anything about loyalty. What's that supposed to mean? Everyone knows you're a loser, Dad. Mom's embarrassed by you. She tells her friends you're holding her back. Another crack in the windshield. Did she tell you that? She didn't have to. It's obvious. Annie wiped her nose with her sleeve. Tyler said his dad thinks you're pathetic. A grown man playing with cars while his wife does all the real work. Tyler's dad, Tom Brennan, who owned the biggest construction company in town, Brett's biggest competitor. Is that what you think, Annie? That I'm pathetic? She looked at me for a long moment. I think you're weak. Mom deserves better. I left her room without another word. That night, I called my old friend Deke Martinez. Deke used to be a cop before he bought Murphy's Tavern, the kind of dive bar where working men went to forget their troubles. We'd known each other since high school, back when life was simpler. Jack Parker, Deke's gravelly voice came through the phone. Haven't heard from you in months. Been busy. I heard. Your wife's been making quite a name for herself around town. So the gossip had started already. Small towns were like that. Secrets traveled faster than wildfire. What are you hearing? Nothing specific. Just that she's been seen around town with Brett Morrison. A lot. They're having an affair. Shit, Jack. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be helpful. What do you know about Brett's business? Deke was quiet for a moment. Why? Because I'm going to destroy him. Jack, Deke, this man has been screwing my wife for months. He sits at my dinner table, drinks my beer, and sleeps with my wife behind my back. I'm not turning the other cheek. Another pause. Meet me at the bar tomorrow night. We'll talk. Thursday dragged by like a funeral march. I went through the motions at the shop, fixing other people's problems while my own life disintegrated. Every customer reminded me of my situation. Mrs. Henderson complained about her cheating ex-husband. Young Mike Torres bragged about his new girlfriend. Old Pete Kowalski told me how lucky I was to have such a beautiful wife. If only they knew. Around 5 o'clock, Lila called. I'm working late tonight. Don't wait up. Sure thing, honey. Working hard? Very hard. This client is very demanding. I almost laughed. I bet he is. After she hung up, I drove to Brett's neighborhood. His house was a modest 2-story on Elm Street, nothing fancy but well-maintained. His red truck wasn't in the driveway, still in the shop, getting its new transmission. Lila's silver BMW was parked around the corner. I sat in my own truck for 20 minutes, watching Brett's house, imagining what was happening inside. My wife of 18 years, naked in another man's bed, doing things she hadn't done with me in years. The rage was pure and clean, like a flame burning away everything weak and pathetic about the old Jack Parker. I drove to Murphy's Tavern. Deke was behind the bar, polishing glasses with mechanical precision. The place was nearly empty, just a few regulars nursing their sorrows in the dim light. Jack. He poured me a whiskey without being asked. You look like hell. I feel worse. Tell me what you want to know about Brett. I took a sip of whiskey, felt it burn down my throat. Everything. Brett Morrison Construction has been struggling for 2 years. He overextended on that lakeside development, borrowed heavily to finance it. Word is, he's behind on his loans. How behind? Behind enough that he's been cutting corners on jobs, using substandard materials, skipping inspections, paying workers under the table. Illegal? Gray area. But if someone reported him to the building inspector, I smiled. Someone should do that. Jack, be careful. Brett's got friends in this town. People who owe him favors. What kind of friends? Deke leaned across the bar. The kind who wear badges. That was interesting. Very interesting. Anyone specific? Deputy Sheriff Rick Santos. Brett helped him build a deck last summer. Didn't charge for labor. Rick's been looking the other way on Brett's corner cutting ever since. I finished my whiskey. Thanks, Deke. Jack, whatever you're planning, I'm not planning anything. I put a 20 on the bar. I'm just a simple mechanic who fixes broken things. Friday morning, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to the county building inspector, reporting safety violations at Brett's current job site. Anonymous tip, of course. The second was to the IRS, reporting suspected tax evasion by Brett Morrison Construction. Also anonymous. The third was to Patricia Hendricks, Esquire, Lila's divorce attorney. Miss Hendricks, this is Jack Parker. I understand you've been talking to my wife. Silence. Then, Mr. Parker, I can't discuss... Oh, you don't need to discuss anything. I just wanted you to know that I know. And I wanted to give you some free advice. Mr. Parker, tell my wife that if she wants a divorce, she should ask for it like an adult, instead of sneaking around like a teenager. And tell her that if she tries to claim I'm abusive, I have 18 years of evidence proving otherwise. I hung up before she could respond. An hour later, Lila called. Jack, we need to talk. About what? About us. About our marriage. What about it? I think we should consider counseling. I almost laughed. Counseling? Yes, I think we've grown apart, and maybe a professional could help us work through our issues. What issues, Lila? You know what issues. No, I don't. Why don't you enlighten me? She was quiet for a long moment. Can we talk about this tonight? When you get home? I'll be home around 6. Good. I'll make dinner. She hadn't made dinner in months. That afternoon, Brett called. Jack, I need to ask you something. Shoot. Did you call the building inspector on me? Why would I do that? Someone reported safety violations on the Riverside project. Anonymous tip. The timing seems awfully convenient. Convenient how? Right after my truck broke down. Right after we had that conversation about trust and betrayal. I let the silence stretch out. Brett, are you accusing me of something? I'm just asking. Well, since you asked, no, I didn't call the building inspector. But if someone did, maybe they had good reason. What's that supposed to mean? It means maybe you should focus on following the rules instead of looking for someone to blame. He hung up without saying goodbye. At 6 o'clock sharp, I walked into my house to find Lila in the kitchen, wearing her best dress and a nervous smile. The table was set with our good china, candles lit, wine poured. Welcome home, she said, kissing my cheek. How was your day? Interesting. Very interesting. We sat down to dinner, steak and potatoes, my favorite meal. Lila made small talk about her work, the weather, Annie's school activities. All very normal, very domestic. Finally, she got to the point. Jack, I think we need to be honest with each other. I agree. Our marriage isn't working. We both know it. Do we? Yes. We've grown apart. We want different things. I cut my steak, chewed slowly. What do you want, Lila? I want to be happy. And I don't make you happy? Not anymore. I nodded. I see. And what would make you happy? I think we should separate for a while. Give each other some space to figure things out. Separate. Yes, I could stay with my mother, or maybe rent a small apartment, just temporarily. What about Annie? She could stay with you during the week, with me on weekends. We'd work it out. I finished my steak, wiped my mouth with the cloth napkin. Lila? Yes? Go amuse yourself. Her face drained. What did you just say? You heard me. Go keep yourself busy. Or better yet, go spend more time with Brett Morrison. Oh wait, looks like you already do. She stood up so fast her chair fell over. Jack, did you really think I wouldn't find out? 3 months, Lila. 3 months of lies and sneaking around and making me look like a fool. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're cheating on me with my best friend, planning to divorce me and trying to take half of everything I've worked for. Tears started rolling down her cheeks. Jack, please. Please what? Please forgive you? Please pretend it never happened? Please make this easy for you. It just happened. I didn't plan it. Bullshit. You've been planning this for months. The divorce attorney, the custody arrangements, the whole sob story about how I'm emotionally abusive. She sank back into her chair. How did I find out? Because you got sloppy, Lila. Sloppy and careless and stupid. I never meant to hurt you, but you did. You destroyed 18 years of marriage for what? For Brett Morrison? For a man who's about to lose his business and his house? What are you talking about? Haven't you heard? Brett's having some financial difficulties. Tax problems, building code violations. His whole world is falling apart. Understanding dawned in her eyes. You did this. I didn't do anything. I just stopped protecting him. Jack, you have to stop. This is crazy. I stood up, threw my napkin on the table. Crazy? You want to see crazy? I walked to the kitchen counter, picked up her purse, dumped the contents on the floor. Her phone clattered across the tiles. Call him, I said. What? Call Brett. Tell him you're leaving me for him. Tell him you want to start a new life together. Jack, call him. She picked up the phone with shaking hands, dialed Brett's number. It went straight to voicemail. He's not answering. Try again. She tried 3 more times. No answer. Maybe he's busy, she said. Maybe he's realizing what a mistake he made. I left her sitting in the kitchen, surrounded by the wreckage of her purse and her lies, and went to my workshop. I had more work to do. The old Jack Parker was past. The new one was just getting started. Saturday morning, I woke up alone. Lila had packed a bag and left sometime during the night, probably to her mother's house. Good. I needed space to work. Annie was at a sleepover, which meant I had the house to myself for the first time in months. I made coffee, scrambled some eggs, and sat down with my laptop to do some research. Brett Morrison Construction had 3 active job sites and 24 subcontractors. After my anonymous tips, the building inspector would be crawling all over his projects by Monday. But that was just the beginning. I pulled up the county property records. Brett owned his house outright, but he'd taken out a massive second mortgage last year to finance the lakeside development. The monthly payments were crushing him. His business bank account, which I accessed through Lila's laptop, she'd saved his login information, the sentimental fool, showed a company hemorrhaging money. Overdue invoices, unpaid suppliers, payroll 2 weeks behind. Brett Morrison was broke. He just didn't know it yet. Around noon, Evelyn called. Jack Parker, what did you do to my daughter? Good morning, Evelyn. How are you today? Don't you dare take that tone with me. Lila came here crying last night, saying you accused her of having an affair. I didn't accuse her of anything. I stated a fact. That's ridiculous. Lila would never. Lila has been screwing Brett Morrison for 3 months. I have the text messages, the emails, and the hotel receipts to prove it. Silence. Then, you're lying. Am I? Ask her about the Riverside Motel on Highway 6, room 237. They meet there every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. More silence. Evelyn, you still there? This is your fault, she said finally. You drove her to this with your neglect and your selfishness. My fault? Yes. You work all the time, you never take her anywhere nice, you dress like a bum. What did you expect? I almost hung up. Almost. But then I remembered something Deke had told me about Evelyn's finances. Her late husband had left her comfortable, but she'd been making some questionable investments lately. Evelyn, how's your portfolio doing these days? What? Your investments. I heard you put some money into that new development Brett's building, the one by the lake. That's none of your business. How much did you invest, Evelyn? I said it's none of your business. 50,000? 100? More? She hung up. I smiled and opened a new browser window. Time to do some more research. Sunday afternoon, I drove to the hospital to visit Mom. She was being discharged Monday morning. Doctor's orders to take it easy for the next few weeks. You look better, she said when I walked into her room. I feel better. Good. Where's Lila? At her mother's. We had a conversation Friday night. About the affair? Among other things. Mom nodded approvingly. And Annie? Annie thinks I'm pathetic and weak. She'll learn otherwise. What's your next move? I pulled a chair up to her bed. Brett's business is about to collapse. The building inspector found code violations on all 3 of his active sites. The IRS is auditing his books. His biggest investor is about to pull out. His biggest investor? Evelyn. She put her retirement money into his lakeside project. Mom laughed, a sound like sandpaper on wood. That bitter old witch invested in her daughter's boyfriend's business. Apparently. And when that project fails, which it will, she'll lose everything. And Lila? Lila will have to choose between a broke boyfriend and a stable marriage. We'll see what she's really made of. Monday morning brought chaos. I opened the shop to find Brett waiting in the parking lot, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. Jack! Thank God you're here. Morning, Brett. You look terrible. He did. Unshaven, clothes wrinkled, eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. The building inspector shut down all my job sites. Every single one. That's rough. And the IRS wants to audit 3 years of tax returns? Ouch. And Evelyn Morrison wants her money back? All of it. By the end of the week. I unlocked the shop door. Evelyn Morrison? Isn't that Lila's mother? Yeah, she invested in the Lakeside project. I didn't know you were in business with my mother-in-law. Brett followed me into the shop. It's not like that. She heard about the development and wanted in. Said she was looking for a good investment. How much did she invest? $150,000. I whistled. That's a lot of money. Jack, I need help. I need to borrow money to pay her back. How much? $50,000. Just to buy some time while I sort out the other problems. I poured myself coffee, offered Brett a cup. He declined. Brett, we've been friends for a long time. 20 years. 20 years. And in all that time, have I ever asked you for anything? No. You're the most generous guy I know. And you've never betrayed my trust, have you? He went very still. What do you mean? I mean, friendship is built on trust, loyalty, honesty. Jack, have you been honest with me, Brett? His face was pale now, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool morning air. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? We stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Brett looked away. I can't lend you $50,000, I said. Why not? Because you're sleeping with my wife. He flinched like I'd slapped him. Jack, I can explain. Explain what? How you've been screwing my wife for 3 months? How you sit at my dinner table and smile at me while planning to destroy my marriage? How you convinced my mother-in-law to invest her retirement money in your failing business? It's not like that. It's exactly like that. I set down my coffee cup. You're a snake, Brett. A lying, cheating, backstabbing snake. Jack, please. Let me explain. I don't want your explanations. I want you out of my shop. What about the money? What about it? I need that loan. My whole business depends on it. Then I guess your business is end. He stood there for another moment, then turned and walked toward the door. At the threshold, he stopped. This isn't over, Jack. No, I agreed. It's not. That afternoon, I got a call from Patricia Hendricks. Mr. Parker, your wife would like to schedule a meeting. What kind of meeting? To discuss the terms of your separation. I'm not separating from my wife. Sir, I think there may be some confusion. There's no confusion. My wife is having an affair. When she's ready to end it and come home, we'll talk. Until then, she can stay at her mother's. Mr. Parker, your wife is prepared to file for divorce if necessary. Let her file. I'll see her in court. Sir, it would be much easier for everyone involved if we could reach an amicable agreement. Amicable? Lady, there's nothing amicable about adultery. I hung up and called Deke. I need another favor. What kind of favor? The kind that involves Deputy Sheriff Rick Santos. Tuesday morning, Rick Santos got an anonymous tip about a possible drunk driving incident. A witness had seen Brett Morrison's truck weaving erratically on Highway 6 the previous night, around 11 p.m. Of course, Brett's truck was still in the shop, getting its transmission rebuilt. But Rick didn't know that when he showed up at Brett's house with a warrant to test his blood alcohol level. The confusion took hours to sort out. By the time Rick realized his mistake, Brett had missed 2 important meetings with potential investors. Wednesday brought another anonymous tip, this time about possible domestic violence at Brett's address. A neighbor had heard shouting and what sounded like furniture breaking. Rick Santos showed up again, this time with backup and a very official attitude. They found no evidence of domestic violence, but they did find Lila's car in Brett's driveway, and Lila herself in Brett's bedroom, wearing nothing but a sheet. Small-town cops love gossip almost as much as small-town housewives. By Thursday, everyone in town knew that Lila Parker was shacked up with Brett Morrison while her husband was taking care of his sick mother. Public opinion, which had been neutral, began to shift. Friday afternoon, I was closing up the shop when Annie appeared in the doorway. She looked smaller somehow, younger than her 16 years. Dad? Hey, kiddo, how was school? Awful. She sat down on a stack of tires. Everyone's talking about Mom. What are they saying? That she's a slut? That she left you for Brett Morrison? That Grandma Evelyn lost all her money because of them? I wiped my hands on a shop rag. And what do you think? I think I was wrong about you. Wrong how? I thought you were weak. But you're not, are you? What makes you say that? Brett's business is falling apart. Mom's hiding at Grandma's house. Everyone in town is talking about what a mess they've made. I sat down across from her. Annie, your mother made her choices. I didn't force her to have an affair. But you're making them pay for it. I'm protecting what's mine. What about me? Where do I fit in all this? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, for the first time in months. She had my stubborn chin and her mother's blue eyes. But there was something else there now. Something harder. You're my daughter. You'll always be my daughter. But you need to decide what kind of person you want to be. What do you mean? I mean you can be like your mother. Selfish, dishonest, willing to hurt the people who love you to get what you want. Or you can be better. She was quiet for a long moment. What if I want to be like you? Like me? Strong. Someone who fights back when people try to hurt them. I smiled. Then you're going to do just fine. That night, Lila called. Jack, we need to talk. I'm listening. This has gone too far. Brett's business is ruined, my mother has lost her life savings, and Annie is caught in the middle. Sounds like a problem you created. I made a mistake. I admit that. But this vendetta of yours has to stop. Vendetta? I haven't done anything illegal. You've systematically destroyed Brett's business. Brett destroyed his own business by cutting corners and breaking the law. I just made sure the right people found out about it. And my mother's investment? Your mother made a bad investment. That's not my fault. Jack, please. Let's be adults about this. Adults? You want to be adults? I laughed. Adults don't sneak around behind their spouse's back. Adults don't lie and cheat and betray the people who trust them. I know I hurt you. You destroyed me, Lila. 18 years of marriage, and you threw it away for what? For Brett Morrison? For a man who's about to lose everything? It wasn't about Brett. It was about us. About how unhappy I was. So you decided to make me unhappy too. I never wanted to hurt you, but you did. And now you want me to just forgive and forget? I want you to stop this war you're fighting. This isn't war, Lila. This is justice. She was crying now. What do you want from me? I want you to come home. I want you to end things with Brett. I want you to be my wife again. And if I do that, you'll stop? Maybe. Maybe? We'll see how sorry you really are. Saturday morning, Brett showed up at my house. I was in the garage, working on my own truck, when I heard his footsteps on the gravel driveway. Jack! I didn't look up from the engine. Brett! We need to talk. I'm busy. My business is gone. The bank is foreclosing on my house. I've lost everything. That's unfortunate. You did this. I finally looked up. Brett was standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the morning sun. He looked like hell. Unshaven, clothes dirty, eyes wild. I didn't do anything. You destroyed me. You destroyed yourself. Because of Lila? Because you're a lying, cheating piece of shit. He stepped into the garage. She doesn't love you, Jack. She hasn't loved you for years. Maybe not. But she's still my wife. Not for long. We'll see. Brett moved closer. You think you've won? You think destroying my life will bring her back? I think you're about to make a very stupid mistake. What mistake? I picked up a tire iron from my workbench, the mistake of threatening me in my own garage. Brett looked at the tire iron, then at my face. Whatever he saw there made him take a step back. This isn't over, he said. Yes, I replied. It is. He left without another word. Sunday afternoon, Lila came home. She walked into the kitchen where I was reading the newspaper, set her suitcase down, and stood there like she was waiting for permission to sit. I ended it, she said. With Brett? Yes. It's over. I folded the newspaper. Why? Because I realized what I was throwing away. What's that? My family. My life. Everything that really matters. And Brett? How did he take it? He was angry. He said some terrible things. I bet he did. She sat down across from me. Jack, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry for what specifically? For the affair. For lying to you. For hurting you and Annie. What about the divorce attorney? I fired her. And your mother's investment? That's not my responsibility. I studied her face. She looked older somehow, worn down by weeks of stress and guilt. What do you want, Lila? I want to save our marriage. Why? Because I love you. Do you? Or do you just love the security I provide? She flinched. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Jack, please. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But people make mistakes. Some mistakes can't be fixed. This one can. If we both work at it. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the yard where Annie and I used to play catch when she was little. What about Brett? What about him? Are you going to see him again? Never. Are you going to help him with his financial problems? No. Are you going to contact him at all? No, Jack. It's over. Completely over. I turned back to her. Good. Because if I find out you're lying to me again, I won't be so forgiving next time. What do you mean? I mean what I did to Brett will look like a love tap compared to what I'll do to you. She went pale. Jack, I'm not the same man I was 3 months ago, Lila. That man was weak and trusting and naive. This man is not. You're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. You should wake up every morning grateful that I'm giving you a second chance. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Now go unpack your things. We have a marriage to rebuild. As she carried her suitcase upstairs, I smiled to myself. The old Jack Parker would have taken her back, unconditionally, would have tried to pretend the affair never happened. The new Jack Parker was smarter than that. Much smarter. 3 weeks passed in an uneasy peace. Lila tried to be the perfect wife, cooking my favorite meals, doing my laundry without being asked, initiating sex for the first time in months. But I could see the fear in her eyes every time she looked at me. Good. Fear was honest. Annie had moved back home too, though she spent most of her time in her room, emerging only for meals and school. The scandal had hit her hard. Her friends' parents whispered about her mother, and the popular kids had started treating her like a social pariah. It's not fair, she complained one evening at dinner. I didn't do anything wrong. Life isn't fair, I told her. The sooner you learn that, the better off you'll be. Lila shot me a warning look. Jack. No, Lila. She needs to understand that actions have consequences. Your actions hurt all of us. Annie pushed food around her plate. Madison's parents won't let her hang out with me anymore. They think our family is unstable. Maybe you should make new friends, I suggested. Friends who judge you by your character, not your mother's mistakes. That's enough, Lila said sharply. I smiled at her. Is it? The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Meanwhile, Brett had disappeared. His house had been foreclosed on. His business was bankrupt, and nobody in town had seen him for weeks. Some people said he'd moved back east to live with his brother. Others thought he'd just driven off into the sunset, leaving his problems behind. I knew better. Brett Morrison wasn't the type to run away. He was the type to nurse his wounds and plot revenge. I was right. Thursday evening, I was working late at the shop when I heard a car pull into the parking lot. Through the window, I saw Brett's rebuilt truck. He'd finally gotten it back from the mechanic. I kept working, pretending I hadn't noticed him. Let him come to me. The shop door opened with its familiar squeal of hinges. "Hello, Jack." I looked up from the engine I was rebuilding. Brett stood in the doorway, backlit by the parking lot lights. He looked different, thinner, harder, like a man who'd lost everything and had nothing left to lose. "Brett, long time no see. I've been away, thinking." "About what?" He stepped into the shop, and I saw his face clearly for the first time. There was something cold in his eyes, something dangerous. "About you, about what you did to me. I didn't do anything to you that you didn't do to yourself. You destroyed my life. You destroyed mine first." Brett moved closer, his hands clenched into fists. "I lost everything because of you. My business, my house, my reputation. You lost everything because you're a lying, cheating piece of shit. And what does that make you?" I set down my wrench, wiped my hands on a shop rag. "A man who protects what's his. Lila was never yours. She was just trapped." "Trapped? By your mediocrity, your small-town mentality, your complete lack of ambition." I laughed. "Is that what she told you?" "She told me a lot of things. About how bored she was, how unfulfilled, how she dreamed of something better. And you were going to give her something better? I was going to give her everything you couldn't." "Like what? Bankruptcy? Foreclosure? Public humiliation?" Brett's face flushed red. "That was your doing. That was your own incompetence catching up with you. You think you've won, don't you? I know I have. You haven't won anything. You've got a wife who doesn't love you and a daughter who's ashamed of you." I picked up the tire iron from my workbench. "You should leave now." "Or what? You'll hit me with that?" "I might." Brett smiled, and there was no humor in it. "Go ahead. Hit me. Give me a reason to call the cops." "The cops? You mean your buddy Rick Santos? The one who's been harassing you for weeks based on anonymous tips?" Understanding dawned in Brett's eyes. "That was you. That was justice. You son of a bitch." Brett lunged at me, but I was ready for him. I sidestepped his charge and brought the tire iron down on his shoulder. He screamed and stumbled, clutching his arm. "You broke my collarbone." "No, I didn't. But I will if you don't get out of my shop." Brett straightened up, his face twisted with pain and rage. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is. You're finished in this town, Brett. Nobody will hire you. Nobody will lend you money. Nobody will even speak to you. You're a ghost." "We'll see about that." "We will. Now get out before I really hurt you." Brett backed toward the door, never taking his eyes off me. "You think you're so smart. You think you've thought of everything. I have." "What about Lila? What about her?" "She's not done with me. She'll never be done with me. She ended it. She ended it because you forced her to, but she still loves me. Get out. Ask her about Tuesday afternoons, Jack. Ask her where she really goes when she says she's showing houses." My blood went cold. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Ask her about the Riverside Motel. Room 237. Our old room." Brett smiled and walked out into the night. I stood there for a long moment, tire iron still in my hand, processing what he'd said. Tuesday afternoons. Lila always worked late on Tuesdays, said she had client meetings. The Riverside Motel was 20 minutes from town, a shabby place where cheating spouses went to conduct their affairs. I'd driven past it 100 times, never thinking it would become part of my story. I locked up the shop and drove home. Lila was in the living room, watching television. She looked up when I walked in, smiled that nervous smile she'd been wearing for weeks. "You're home late?" "Had to finish a job." "I saved you some dinner. Pot roast." "Thanks." I sat down beside her on the couch. She tensed slightly, the way she always did now when I got too close. "Lila?" "Yes?" "Where were you Tuesday afternoon?" The color drained from her face. "Tuesday? I was showing the Henderson place to a client." "What client?" The Johnsons, from Springfield." What's their phone number? Why? I want to call them. Thank them for working with my wife. Jack, that's not necessary. What's their phone number, Lila? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, there are no Johnsons. I know. Jack, how many times? What? How many times have you seen Brett since you came home? Tears started rolling down her cheeks. 3 times. At the Riverside Motel? Yes. I nodded, feeling strangely calm. Why? I don't know. I couldn't help myself. You couldn't help yourself. I tried to stay away from him. I really did. But when he called you? Yes. He said he was leaving town, that he wanted to say goodbye. And you believed him? I wanted to believe him. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the street where I'd grown up, where I'd built my life, where I'd thought I'd grow old with the woman I married. Pack your bags, I said. Jack, please, pack your bags and get out of my house. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. Go to your mother's, go to Brett's, go to hell. Just get out. What about Annie? Annie stays with me. You can't keep me from my daughter. I turned back to her. Watch me. Jack, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. No, Lila. The first time was a mistake. The second time was a choice. The third time was a pattern. I'll end it, for real this time. You already had your second chance. Please, Jack. I love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of security. You love having someone to fall back on when your boyfriend disappoints you. But you don't love me. She was sobbing now, mascara running down her cheeks. What about our marriage? What about 18 years together? What about them? Doesn't that mean anything to you? It meant everything to me. That's why this hurts so much. Jack, go pack your bags, Lila. I won't ask again. She stood up on shaky legs, started toward the stairs, then stopped. What are you going to tell Annie? The truth. She'll hate me. She should. An hour later, Lila was gone. She'd packed 2 suitcases and left without another word, driving off into the night like a thief fleeing the scene of a crime. I poured myself a whiskey and sat in my empty living room, listening to the silence. 18 years of marriage reduced to this. Annie came downstairs in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Dad? Where's Mom? She's gone. Gone where? I don't know. She made her choice. Annie sat down beside me on the couch. Is she coming back? No. Good. I looked at my daughter in surprise. Good? She hurt you. She hurt our family. She doesn't deserve to come back. Annie, I'm not a little kid anymore, Dad. I know what she did. I know she kept seeing Brett even after she promised to stop. How did you know that? I followed her Tuesday afternoon. I saw her go into that motel with him. My heart broke a little more. Why didn't you tell me? Because I hoped she would stop on her own. I hoped she would choose us. I put my arm around my daughter, and for the first time in months, she didn't pull away. I'm sorry you had to see that. I'm sorry she's such a terrible person. She's not terrible, Annie. She's just weak. What's the difference? I thought about that for a moment. Terrible people hurt others on purpose. Weak people hurt others by accident, over and over again. Which is worse? I don't know, but I'm done being hurt by either one. We sat in silence for a while, father and daughter, survivors of the same shipwreck. What happens now? Annie asked. Now we rebuild. Without her? Without her. Good, Annie said again. We're better off without her. Maybe she was right. Maybe we were better off without Lila's lies and betrayals and weakness. But as I sat there in the wreckage of my marriage, I couldn't help thinking about Brett's words. This isn't over. He was right. It wasn't over. Not yet. Friday morning brought news that spread through town like wildfire. Brett Morrison had been found dead in his truck on the old logging road outside town. A single gunshot wound to the head. I heard about it from Deke, who called me at the shop around 9 o'clock. Jack, you need to know something. What? Brett's dead. I set down the coffee cup I'd been holding. Dead how? Gunshot. They found him this morning. Suicide? That's what the cops are saying. Left a note and everything. What did the note say? Haven't heard the details yet, but Jack... Yeah? You need to be careful. People are going to ask questions. What kind of questions? The kind that involve you and Brett and what happened between you two. I thought about the confrontation in my shop the night before. Had anyone seen Brett's truck in my parking lot? Had anyone heard us arguing? I'll be fine, Deke. I didn't do anything wrong. I know that, but in a town this size, people love to talk. After I hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, thinking. Brett Morrison was dead. The man who'd destroyed my marriage, who'd humiliated me in front of the whole town, who'd threatened me just 12 hours ago. Gone. I should have felt something. Relief, maybe. Or satisfaction. Or even guilt. Instead, I felt nothing at all. The cops came by around noon. Deputy Sheriff Rick Santos and Detective Mary Walsh from the state police. I knew Rick, of course. He'd been harassing Brett for weeks based on my anonymous tips. Detective Walsh was a stranger, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who looked like she didn't miss much. Mr. Parker, Rick said, we need to ask you some questions about Brett Morrison. I heard what happened. Terrible thing. When was the last time you saw Mr. Morrison? Detective Walsh asked. I pretended to think about it. A few weeks ago, maybe? He came by looking for work, but I didn't have anything for him. He came by looking for work? Yeah, his business went under, you know. He was pretty desperate. How did he seem to you? Desperate. Angry. Blamed everyone but himself for his problems. Detective Walsh made notes in a small notebook. Did he mention anything about suicide? Not specifically. But he was pretty bitter about how his life had turned out. We understand you two had some kind of falling out, Rick said. Falling out? Over your wife. I looked Rick in the eye. My wife made some poor choices. Brett took advantage of those choices. I didn't appreciate it. How didn't you appreciate it? Detective Walsh asked. I told him to stay away from my family. When was this? Couple months ago. And he stayed away? Far as I know. Detective Walsh flipped through her notebook. Mr. Parker, we have witnesses who say you and Mr. Morrison had a confrontation at your daughter's school. Something about a slideshow? I'd almost forgotten about that. Brett was there with my wife. I wasn't happy about it. What exactly happened?
I made it clear that he wasn't welcome around my family.
Things got a little heated. How heated? I may have raised my voice. Did you threaten him? I told him to stay away from my wife and daughter. Is that all? That's all. Detective Walsh closed her notebook. Mr. Parker, where were you last night between 8 and midnight? At my shop until about 10, then home with my daughter. Can anyone verify that? My daughter can. Anyone else? I thought about it. Mrs. Henderson, next door, might have seen me come home. She's always watching out her window. After the cops left, I called Annie at school and told her she might be questioned about the night before. I coached her on what to say, that I'd been home by 10:30, that we'd watched television together, that I'd been there all night. It wasn't exactly true, but it wasn't exactly false either. That afternoon, the local newspaper published Brett's suicide note. It was short and bitter. I can't live with what I've become. Jack Parker destroyed my life, and I let him. I'm tired of being weak. I'm tired of losing. I'm sorry for the pain I've caused, especially to Lila and Annie. Maybe now they can have some peace. The note painted me as a vindictive husband who'd driven a desperate man to suicide. Within hours, the story had spread across social media. #Justice for Brett started trending locally. People who'd never met me were calling me a monster. But the people who mattered, the people who knew what Brett had done to my family, saw it differently. Good riddance was how Deke put it. The bastard got what he deserved. Mom, who was recovering nicely at home, was more philosophical. Some people can't live with the consequences of their choices. Annie was the most direct. I'm glad he's dead. Now maybe we can move on. The funeral was held the following Tuesday at St. Patrick's Catholic Church. I didn't attend, but I drove past the church during the service. The parking lot was half empty. Brett Morrison, who'd once been one of the most popular men in town, was being buried with little fanfare and less mourning. Lila was there, of course. I saw her standing by the grave in a black dress, crying into a tissue, playing the grieving lover to the end. After the funeral, she came to the house. I was in my workshop when I heard her car in the driveway. She knocked on the door like a stranger.
"Hello, Jack." "Lila." She looked terrible, pale, thin, eyes red from crying.
"Can I come in? This is still your house."
"Legally."
She stepped into the workshop, looked around at the tools and equipment that had been my refuge for so many years. "I came to get some more of my things." "Fine." "And to talk." "About what?" "About Brett."
"About what happened?"
I kept working on the engine in front of me. "What about it?" "Did you kill him?" I looked up at her then. "What kind of question is that?" "An honest one." "No, Lila,
"I didn't kill Brett Morrison."
but you drove him to suicide." "Did I? Or did his own choices drive him to suicide?" "You destroyed his life." "He destroyed his own life. And mine.
"And yours."
Jack, Brett Morrison was a grown man who made his own decisions. He decided to sleep with my wife. He decided to lie to me for months. He decided to take your mother's money for a business he knew was failing. He loved me. He loved the idea of you. Just like you loved the idea of him. That's not true, isn't it? You loved the excitement, the secrecy, the feeling that you were getting away with something. But when it came time to choose between him and security, you chose security. I chose my family. You chose what was convenient. Lila was crying now, tears streaming down her face. I made mistakes. I know that. But Brett didn't deserve to die. Maybe not, but he's dead, and we're not. How can you be so cold? 18 years of marriage, Lila. 18 years of love and trust and commitment, and you threw it away for what? For a few afternoons in a cheap motel? It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. What happens now? Now you pack your things and leave. We get divorced. We split our assets. We try to rebuild our lives. What about Annie? Annie stays with me. She's my daughter too. Then you should have thought about that before you chose Brett Morrison over your family. Jack, please. I know I hurt you, but nothing. You made your choice. Live with it. Lila stood there for another moment, then turned and walked toward the house. I watched her go. This woman I'd loved for half my life. This stranger who destroyed everything we'd built together. An hour later, she was gone again. This time for good. That evening, Annie and I had dinner alone in our quiet house. She'd made spaghetti and meatballs, my favorite meal. "How are you doing, kiddo?" "Better. It's nice having the house to ourselves." "You don't miss your mom?" Annie considered this. "I miss the mom she used to be, before all this started. What was she like before? Happy. Or at least she seemed happy. She used to laugh more. She used to hug me without it feeling fake. She loved you, Annie. She still does. Maybe. But she loved Brett more." "No, she didn't. She loved the idea of Brett more." "What's the difference?" "The difference is that real love requires sacrifice. It requires putting someone else's needs before your own. Your mother never learned how to do that. Did you? Love her that way, I mean." I thought about it. I tried to. For 18 years, I tried to. "And now?" "Now I'm tired of trying." Annie nodded. "Good. You deserve better." "So do you." "I know, and I'm going to make sure I get it." Later that night, after Annie had gone to bed, I sat in my workshop with a beer and thought about everything that had happened. Brett Morrison was dead. Lila was gone. My marriage was over. But I was still here. I was still standing. The old Jack Parker, the weak, trusting, pathetic man who'd let people walk all over him, was gone too. In his place was someone harder, someone smarter, someone who understood that the world was full of predators and victims, and the only choice was which one you wanted to be. I'd chosen to be a predator, and I'd won. 3 months later, the divorce was final. Lila got half the house value and half my retirement account, but I kept the business and primary custody of Annie. She moved to Springfield with her mother, got a job at a real estate firm there, and tried to start over. Brett Morrison's death was officially ruled a suicide. The investigation was closed without charges being filed against anyone. I never told anyone what really happened that night in my shop. How Brett had threatened me, how we'd fought, how I'd hit him with a tire iron harder than I'd admitted. How we'd stumbled out of my shop, clutching his shoulder, promising revenge. How I'd followed him. How I'd found him parked on the old logging road, sitting in his truck with a bottle of whiskey and a gun. How I'd watched him put the gun to his head. How I'd done nothing to stop him. Some people might call that murder. I called it justice. Brett Morrison had destroyed my life, and I'd destroyed his. In the end, he'd been too weak to live with the consequences of his choices. I wasn't. 6 months after the divorce, Annie and I were doing fine. She'd made new friends, her grades had improved, and she'd started dating a nice boy from her chemistry class. She was learning to be strong, to stand up for herself, to never let anyone treat her the way her mother had treated me. I was proud of her. As for me, I was rebuilding too. The shop was busier than ever. People respected a man who fought for what was his. I'd started dating a woman named Sarah, a nurse at the hospital where Mom had been treated. She was kind and honest and had no patience for games or lies. She was everything Lila wasn't. One evening, as I was closing up the shop, I found myself thinking about that night on the logging road, about Brett Morrison, sitting in his truck with a gun to his head, tears streaming down his face. "Please," he'd whispered, "don't let me do this." But I'd said nothing, done nothing, just watched as he pulled the trigger. Some people might lose sleep over something like that, might feel guilty or haunted or ashamed. I slept like a baby, because in the end, Brett Morrison had gotten exactly what he deserved, and I'd gotten exactly what I wanted. Justice. The old Jack Parker would have tried to save him, would have talked him out of it, would have called for help. But the old Jack Parker was weak and naive and trusting. The new Jack Parker understood that sometimes justice requires you to let bad things happen to bad people. Sometimes the best thing you can do for the world is nothing at all. As I locked up the shop and headed home to Annie and our quiet house and our peaceful life, I smiled. They'd wanted a villain. I'd given them exactly what they deserved.